Hello and welcome to the Trinity Sunday School video for this week. This is the 7th week of Easter and the second week of our theme, which is called to care. Jesus is called to care for us. So last week we talked about how Jesus calls us to care for our communities, the people who we have connections to, our friends, our families, our churches, our sports teams, our communities. This week, we're talking about Jesus' call to care for the poor and forgotten, people who are vulnerable, people who are marginalized, people who feel ignored and lonely, who are sick, and who need to be cared for. So when Jesus was on earth, that's exactly what he did. He cared for those people. He healed them, he fed them, he stayed with them, he talked to them, and he cared for them in a way that the world around them didn't. And even today, the world around us often does not care for the people who most need it, the people who don't have money, the people who don't have a home, people who don't have as many friends as other people, people who are ignored by the rest of the world. Those are the people that Jesus calls us to care for. So we come out of our communities and we go into the world and we provide care to the poor and forgotten. So to help explain this, I'm going to go and I'm going to read again from the lectionary. This is the first reading. So this is from the book of the Acts of the Apostles. This is from the Acts of the Apostles. This is the first reading. Again, if you watch the worship video, you will have heard them read this. And if not, then you're going to hear it now. So this is the book of Acts, chapter 1, verses 6 through 14. So when they had come together, they asked him, "Lord, is this the time when you will restore the kingdom to Israel?" He replied, "It is not for you to know the times or periods that the Father has set by his own authority, but you will receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, in all Judea and Samaria, and to the ends of the earth." When he had said this, as they were watching, he was lifted up, and a cloud took him out of their sight. While he was going, and they were gazing up toward heaven, suddenly 2 men in white robes stood by them. They said, "Men of Galilee, why do you stand looking up toward heaven? This Jesus, who has been taken up from you into heaven, will come in the same way as you saw him go into heaven." Then they returned to Jerusalem from the mount called Olivet, which is near Jerusalem, a Sabbath's day journey away. When they had entered the city, they went to the room upstairs where they were staying. Peter and John and James and Andrew, Philip and Thomas, Bartholomew and Matthew, James son of Alphaeus, and Simon the Zealot, and Judas son of James. All these were constantly devoting themselves to prayer, together with certain women, including Mary, the mother of Jesus, as well as his brothers. So this is the story of Jesus' ascension. He has been resurrected. He's been with his disciples for a while. He's appeared to them. He's eaten with them. He's prayed with them. It's been really wonderful and awesome. And now he's being taken, he's going back to his Father. He's ascending into heaven, and he's departing from his disciples. But before he leaves, Jesus tells them, "You are to be my witnesses in the world." And that's his parting message to him. Be my witnesses. The Holy Spirit will be with you. You will go out into the world and be witnesses. And to be a witness of Jesus, to witness to what Jesus did in the world, we have to do the same thing. So now that Jesus is ascended into heaven, it's the apostles' responsibility, it's the disciples' responsibility, it's our responsibility as Christians to do what he did, to care for the poor, to heal the sick, to talk to the lonely, to feed the hungry, to house the homeless. And this is how we witness to Jesus' love in the world. Now, again, like last week, the way we do that, the way we care for the poor and the forgotten, probably looks different right now than it normally does. So But again, like last week, there are still ways that we can do it, but it looks a little bit different. So many of you probably know that Trinity has DEO, so our Downtown Episcopal Outreach, which is a ministry to serve the homeless and hungry community in Omaha. We serve meals once a week on Wednesdays. And of course, right now, we can't serve in person. So what we're doing is we're packing bags and that are being handed out and taken to the St. Francis house so that it can be safe. So we aren't able to do exactly what we did before, but we're still striving to care for those people. So this week at home, I would challenge you to think about a group of people who are poor and forgotten. Maybe it's the homeless, maybe it's the hungry, maybe it's people who are discriminated against, maybe it's people who are sick. Whoever it is, think about the ways that you would normally serve them, and then think, how can I do that now? So maybe instead of volunteering at DEO and being there in person, you save up your allowance and you donate it. Or you go to the store with your mom and get some cans of food to donate. Maybe instead of talking to your friend who's lonely, you send them a letter or call them instead. Maybe instead of visiting someone who's sick, you wear a mask. You make sure that you follow social distancing. You make sure that everything you're doing is keeping those people safe, those people who are vulnerable and who are most at risk from the virus. So we're caring in all those ways. We're caring for people who are hungry, people who are lonely, people who are sick, people who are vulnerable. The people who Jesus calls us to love. So that's the lesson for this week. It was great to see you through the video. Tune in next week for our last lesson in Jesus' call to care. I love you all, and goodbye.